Brent, we're recording. We're going right now.
We're live.
Right meow.
All right,
Okay,
welcome everybody.
welcome to
Go ahead, Nick.
welcome to If I May, a talk show slash podcast here, designed by three people that probably nobody wants to hear from. You know, we have that classic stereotype filled of three white American males, you know, that really, that niche group that no one's ever heard from before. So you should probably just tune out and ignore us entirely. But that being said, the format of our discussion and discussions going forward is using the term "if I may," which is just the most polite way possible to interrupt somebody.
If I may.
Which is how
I think we can go ahead and get into our introductions of who we are. So I know you kind of brought us up. We are three white males. That is a fact. My name is Kyle. I'm an engineer. So I know I got a lot of technology and sciencey stuff that I can talk about.
Yeah, and I'm Brent, and I'm gonna work at a zoo, so I got that going for me.
That's pretty neat.
That is quite exciting and a very different perspective, certainly, with respect to what it is you'll be the expert on. Which we can thank you for that.
If I may, we need Nick to intro quick, and then we have to go back to Brent here because I don't think I actually got the full scoop on Brent working at a zoo.
Yeah, I've got more questions as well. But my name is Nick. I am an accountant, and I am a business specialist, if you will, looking into the details and inner workings, and like to discuss a number of different things. I'm a bit outdoorsy, a bit technology, gaming, you know, all the typical stereotypes for a slightly overweight male living in America, you know, the real stereotypes.
Oh my gosh.
So
You're running. You're doing more running than me.
I am running, yes. I'm training for that relay marathon that I do every year, so I got to do better than I did last year. I wasn't pleased with my efforts.
Every year?
So.
Haven't you just done it once?
If I may,
no, I've done that 2 times now. Go ahead.
If I may, I carried your butt last time.
You had me in 5th place overall for the whole race. I am not a runner. Literally, the entire time I was running, people were passing me, which, because of my ego, had me gassed in about 10 minutes. Anyway, so thank you for that.
Okay, so back to Brent. Brent, you're working at a zoo. What?
Yeah. So this summer, I'm working at a zoo up in Seattle, Woodland Park Zoo, and working with their summer camp. And I think that's going to be a pretty crazy experience in that I'll be with children 5 days a week, all day, monitoring the behavior. And I don't know, and I'll be able to tell you later as the summer goes on, if the animals in the zoo are actually the zoo animals themselves or the children that are roaming it with me. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But it's going to be a heck of a summer, and I'm hoping, you know, we can just keep the ride going.
If I may, I'm told there are both and all of the above of lions, tigers, and bears.
Are there bears as well?
Yes. There are grizzly bears and some other types as well. So
how does one even apply to be working at a zoo? Like, is it like a standard job where there's just a posting? You have to look. I want to work at a zoo. Like, what did you Google to find your zoo position that you applied for and evidently got?
This is going to be the, you know, back in my day story that I'll be telling my children. It'll be back in my day. We had to go on the website of the zoo and look up at the job board that they posted.
Oh, so there's no like public thing. You literally just
application that I typed in to my keys, and they're gonna not know what that means. But
if I may, when I applied for any accounting position, they literally sat me down and I counted out beans for them. Now, for this zoo position, did you in fact fight a lion with nothing more than a whip and a chair?
Or did you simply just shovel the horse poop?
No. So the interview actually had a pretty interesting question that they asked. They asked, "You're given."
If I may, the interesting question was, "Why do you want to work at a zoo?"
No, barely. Who doesn't want to work at a zoo? It's the dream job, if we're being honest. But the question was, you're given a winter glove, a spatula, a wooden spatula, and a rubber band. And you need to teach a 5-minute lesson on anything based around one or all of those items. So that's how you get to work at a zoo, is know how to use a winter glove, a spatula, and
And a rubber. Can you talk
rubber
about
band.
anything, or do you have to limit it to animals?
It could be anything. I chose for the conservation aspect. I went recycling actually as a way to draw on some conservation and some environment, because that's what zoos are about. So try to get those extra brownie points
If
that
I
way.
may, I believe the correct answer was you make a slingshot, you put on the glove for safety, obviously. You put the wooden spoon in the rubber band, hold the rubber band with the glove, and pull back on the wooden spoon and launch the wooden spoon at the wall.
So Kyle has an interesting story about wearing gloves. Go ahead, Kyle. You can tell it better than I can.
If I may, I have no idea what you're talking
The
about.
slingshot. The slingshot.
Oh.
So okay, all right. Here we
Okay,
go.
I know what you're talking about.
For Kyle's birthday this year, I got him a slingshot. Which, by the way, you
Continue.
need to have a driver's license to buy. So this isn't just like a little stick thing. This is
a legitimate weapon.
Yeah, I didn't realize I bought my friend a weapon for his birthday, but I found out the hard way. No, I didn't get hit by a slingshot, but I went to try it out.
You definitely got hit by a slingshot. If I may.
Not a pebble or whatever they are. So I pull back the marble, I let go, but it like hits my skin, and I got this nice scar that's healing up right in between
It's
my
still
thumb and
healing?
pointer finger. Oh yeah, I found out yesterday that you can stretch it out, like you pull on the skin, and the scar looks bigger. It's pretty badass, but
It's been over a month.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
So that's my one time ever using a slingshot.
Okay, if I may, let's get into one of our topics here. Nick, you want to lead one off?
Well, mine are a much different tone than injuring yourself with a slingshot. But if we're on the topic of weapons, I can kind of jump into a more serious note. And not that I want to take it in an overly serious direction, but obviously the content is applicable with what's going on in the world today. And the topic I wanted to run over was gun control, and you guys can feel free to jump in wherever you feel necessary. I'm not going to get political and really try and say, oh, this is right or this is wrong, or I believe this and you should believe that. That's not what I'm after. I'm more bringing awareness to the situation. Not that I am, the kind who goes on Facebook and changes my profile picture and sends out the thoughts and prayers and all that other useless stuff that happens in social media.
Easy.
But it doesn't accomplish anything is my point. Not that we don't want to send, thoughts and prayers, but everyone thinks they're a social media hero every time they post that. And it's like, okay, well, that's not having a discussion. That's not actually looking at the issues. And again, I don't want to push someone one way or the other, but I would like to address the way that things are discussed in this subject and other subjects in politics today. Again, not trying to persuade anybody, but I wish we could have a more frank discussion. You look at gun control, and I have personal feelings that lean one way, but I confidently believe that I could argue both sides of the case, if you will, with respect to should guns be more controlled, should they be less controlled, and ultimately, ironically, the arguments that I've gone through and discussions that I've had would probably end up winning the opposite way of that I actually feel. But I think it's important to when you're looking at something that has such high emotions and so many real life impacts that are life and death. It's a huge thing. The biggest thing for me is to listen. I mean, so many people have so many opinions, and let's be frank, not a lot of people are worth listening to. But there are so many stupid people who will just jump in and throw in fake news. Let's throw out some more political terminology, but there's so much going on out there, and so many high running emotions, and frankly so many stupid people. But the key is to listen, and I really pride myself for the most part on being able to empathize with people. And you look at a situation where lives are lost because someone went off the rails, and there's certainly been enough of them, so you can kind of look at different groupings and classify them as, okay, well, this was preventable. This one, how does this person have a gun? And then this most recent one in Texas, at least based on the limited reading that I've done, there were no signs. This is not someone who was, disturbed or had a lot of, history with the police or anything crazy like that. The alleged story on the news, and again, I have no backing or, true research into this, was that the boy, we'll call him, was scorned by a woman, and basically went out to get revenge and got a hold of his father's weapons. And there's a lot of people at fault. Primarily, I would say the parents, obviously getting a hold of the gun. And what can lawmakers do to fix that? I don't think it can be a law issue, but I think it's a family core values issue. But regardless of where you fall, how you approach an argument is important. Yes, you have something to say and you feel a certain way about it, but I truly believe listening is key. Doing the research and reading, and there's so much garbage out there on the internet that grabs from a lot of different directions. And I guess I personally am a gun owner and supporter, but at the same time, I understand the need for controls. So that kind of leads me into, since you guys aren't jumping in, the next topic I kind of wanted to jump into.
If I may.
Which is,
if I may,
whoa. We are tentatively listening and waiting for you to...
appreciate that, if I may.
So, I guess, if I may jump in here for the gun control topic, I think there's two things that came to mind as you were having talking there. One of them is, I guess, the core of the problem, which is really like mental health and the whole family aspect. I think that's definitely something that should really be focused on instead of the gun laws per se. I know people are trying to make a lot of times when the shootings come up, people are quick to jump on making laws on anything in general. But when any tragedy happens, everybody's like, oh, we got to change something. When it's like, well, let's find the core issue first and try to change that. So in my opinion, this is definitely a mental health thing where it's, maybe we have to, take a step back and, find the real issue and see what we can do to encounter those people earlier and try to help out. I know I was actually listening to the news this morning, and one of the things that was brought up is there's actually a program out there that kind of scans social media for signs of this kind of thing where somebody might be triggered by something or is going down the wrong path. And it'll kind of like single them out and like flag the school. So like at this point, it sounds like school districts and law enforcement used to be able to buy it, but not anymore. Sounds like the company, for privacy reasons, doesn't want law enforcement to be able to buy it anymore. But they've had schools be able to buy it, and they actually just recently, like a month ago, they had one of the schools advocate like, hey, we actually had triggered a kid that was really close to committing suicide, and we were able to get him help. And he admitted that like he had a plan and everything, but this like software was able to help identify him online. I guess the second thing I want to touch on is, for me, I'm a little bit, stronger on the gun control thing, where, in my opinion, I understand why there needs to be regulations on gun control, and I'm definitely all for preventing guns from getting in the wrong hands. But I know one of the main arguments people make is, oh, assault weapon, you don't need an assault weapon. When in reality, I think assault weapons is kind of like a skin on a semi-automatic gun. There's a lot of guns out there that aren't quote-unquote assault weapons that can do pretty much just as much damage. And honestly, I think before the recent couple of years, I think one of the most devastating shootings was literally a guy in the back of a car with a bolt-action hunting rifle just picking people off. So it's kind of like people make the excuse of, oh, why do you need a assault weapon? And I don't personally own one, but it's kind of one of those, you can make the same argument about cars. Like, why do you need a Ferrari? Everybody should be driving smart cars. There's no reason.
That's a great point.
There's no reason to own an assault weapon, or there's no reason to own a Ferrari. Cars kill more people per year than guns. I mean, granted.
Yeah, if I may, the big thing that stands out to me, and regardless of my personal feelings, one way or the other, although I will admit that I'm in the same boat as you as a responsible gun owner, if I had to peg where this is going to end up, whether I like it or not, if I were to predict, unfortunately, as a society, as a herd of animals, in order for us to be successful and maintain the most of us, we do unfortunately have to play to the lowest common denominator. And frankly, I think a large percent of the population, you know, as education becomes so complicated, you know, there's the basics: reading, writing, social skills, what have you. You know, you look at, you know, how many people actually know about guns. To your earlier point, you know, everyone refers to things as assault weapons and assault rifles, and it's just like, okay, well, actually, that's just a semi-automatic gun. That's not an assault style weapon. And certainly those are out there and they can be used. And you had some great points around that. But if I'm calling where this would hypothetically end, you have to play to the lowest common denominator. And you look at the lack of education regarding guns, and I mean, guns aren't important to, God, a huge percent of the population. You know, so few need them. I mean, a lot of people own them, certainly for protection or for recreational use, what have you. But the education just isn't there. The respect for something like a gun is not there. You look at something as simple as cooking. So many kids grow up and their parents don't have the classic stay at home and cook meals and teach the children how to cook. So you have children growing up who are in high school who don't know how to cook for themselves. Well, if they don't know how to cook for themselves, which seems like common sense to myself and certainly prior generations, you've had to figure out how to cook
mac and
to survive.
cheese.
If I may, I mean, the thing is that the parent generation, it's already too late. The parents that are having children now don't know already. So it's like we're already 2-3 down where, you know, I mean, you're gonna have to educate, but it's a huge undertaking to do. I think the thing that I struggle with gun control is just, you know, do we need to be having guns in regular citizens' hands that have such large magazines? And I feel like if you limit that size where it's more difficult to quickly reload, or you know, it's, you know, you can really start to minimize
If
some of
I
the
may,
scale of things.
back with Kyle's comment, you know, you don't need a car that can go 300 miles an hour. You don't need those high-end sports cars, but you still have the freedom to go and buy them. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you have that choice. Additionally, I would look at the most recent shootings. I don't think any of those had large magazines. Not again.
Yeah, the Texas guy was
to,
a shotgun and a pistol, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, not to. I don't want to get into the details on this. Just I think we wanted to avoid that as a theory. But we talked about something in our unofficial episode 0, Kyle, where we were talking about. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it was, but it was related to the gun control and common sense. I'll have to come back to that later.
Great story.
Then I found $5.
Really? Where?
Yeah,
cool.
In my pocket. You know, okay, speaking of pockets, if I may, I have a great topic, and I think Absolutely. It needs to be done. Why are there not boxers with a cell phone pocket in them?
If I may, why? Like, you don't walk around in boxers out in public. Why do you need
for when I'm in my apartment, as I am right now, in my boxers, and I want to carry my cell phone around with me, and you're like, oh crap, where did I set down my cell phone? And then either you're carrying it or you're setting it down. If you set it down somewhere, I'm going to lose it. Like, do you two do housework in your boxers?
No.
What?
You have to
if I may, first. I'm going to spare anyone and everyone the mental images that are being processed.
Nobody knows what you look like.
You're walking around in your boxers and whatever it is the rest of us do.
I think there needs to be a pocket in my boxers for my cell phone.
If I may, the problem would be solved instead with like a waistband that you can just put around your waist that can carry yourself.
If I may, is that not the point of a waistband to be?
No, I'm just saying. Like you start with boxers, but then you have
to see what you need is a fanny pack.
Yes.
Hold on. Does that go in and around the fanny? I'm confused.
All right. Well, I know we brought up a heavier subject with gun control, which that was great, and we probably didn't even touch what we should have.
Oh God.
But I want to bring it up to something that also happened this past weekend of people think of importance, but not at all. For those who don't know, the royal wedding of England, I believe, or United Kingdom, or whatever they are, happened this past weekend.
Oh, you'll start a riot there.
No. So I have a hot take.
England versus UK.
I have a hot take on this one.
If I may, I believe
I don't care.
Britain.
I don't care. I didn't watch it. It doesn't matter to me. Like, next.
So you brought it up.
I need to bring this up.
Something we need to talk about it.
If I may, I think one of the biggest things is it's kind of like a symbolism thing of, you know, a previous time, and you know, the monarchy. Wow, words are hard. At this point, is more of just kind of an idea, and it's a respect thing to the previous royal family and rulers of the past. But I don't know. I think at this point, yeah, it's just kind of a pay respects to the history of England. It's kind of like us celebrating 4th of July.
If I may, I think it's just a slightly more favored ex-president situation. The same way the Bush family is highly revered for having, you know, 2 presidents, both Georges as president. That's not a royal family per se, but anytime they're involved with something, it carries great weight. So you look at the English system, and the monarchy carries great weight despite having little to no. I guess I can't say they have little to no political influence. Certainly, there is a political aspect to it, but their tangible, real power is not there. They don't make laws anymore or do anything like that. But there's still, yes, a respect and a kind of an unspoken reverence for the family, especially the Queen. I mean, how old is the Queen?
She's
still
old.
Kicking, right?
Her husband is still kicking. That's the amazing thing.
How old is he?
I'll have to look now.
They're all ancient. You know.
I apologize for the keyboard clicking.
At some point, we'll have to get our format straight so we can Google questions that come up during this. But
she is currently 92.
Okay, so if I may, there's this device that was invented probably around 10 years ago now that allows you to search the internet in your pocket.
Real time.
No, I carry it around. We just talked about it with boxers. You have a phone that when you type on it makes no noise like a keyboard. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. I don't know. I could probably make some noise.
Just do the old Google thing. Yeah, I don't want to hear that noise. Nope. Anyway, so I mean, the British were invading us with 1960s, the Beatles and stuff, but we're finally getting them back. The princess who's married to the guy who's number 6 in line is American. So
you never know when they might go through those.
We're getting in there. We're getting in there. She's a spy.
Back in the old times, that was a big thing. Like people would kill their family and stuff just to become in power.
Well, yeah, that's what 90% of good television is based on: royal families and airlines and.
I saw Robin Hood.
Airlines.
Yeah, I said
like
that.
Pan America.
Modern.
Yeah. Delta and Spirit and all those other airlines.
All of them.
What am I trying to say? Like the air, HEIR, and the line of the air. Like what is the actual terminology? I'm blanking so horribly. Lineage. Okay. Well, that doesn't refer to who's the heir.
Royal lineage.
Okay.
Moving on.
There's another word. Yeah, whatever. Moving on.
Next.
You're horrible at these topics. My God.
That was a good topic. That was, I mean...
You started out by saying, let's not acknowledge this, but here it is.
Nick is bringing us down with his, very important, important, but very heavy topics, and I'm just trying to lighten the mood.
Sorry, if I may, I did clarify that we are 3 white American males. What's more American than guns?
Sure.
And not knowing if it's Britain, UK, or England.
Not caring, frankly. No offense. But moving on.
Wales. It's Wales. Whatever that.
I guess I can transition into a slightly different topic, but touches on the international scene that Americans are so ignorant about. Myself, obviously included, and after this last discussion, clearly both of you. But with that, just kind of a very. What are your opinions? I'll phrase it as a question. What are your opinions as Americans of the rest of the world's perception of America? I've heard enough stories from friends who travel. I've only been out of the country to go to areas in the Caribbean. I've never been to Europe. I've never been to Asia. I'd like to go check out some of those areas. I have a bucket list that has Egypt, has Greece and Rome on it, but I've not taken the time. I just have got to have the money, number one, and number two, got to have the time and the lifestyle that allows for something like that. But
so, if I may, as an expert in this topic, because the reason I'm an expert is because I was on a chat roulette in college, and I talked to a guy from New Zealand, and all the girls are hot here, which I confirmed. There's no way I'm not confirming that, and everything's just like Hollywood. So Hollywood is the perception, at least from a New Zealand standpoint. Hollywood is the perception of how it is here in America.
No, I miss the days of westerns. It used to be the perception of America was like the Wild West, and I feel like we've lost that recently. And John Wayne, Clint Eastwood. Let's get back to that.
if I may, that time is past. Although it was a glorified point in time. This is where I make it way too serious and point out we wiped out basically an entire group of people, which is the least expressive way I can say we basically committed genocide on the Native Americans to conquer that glorious West you speak of. But I'm not going to try and rub your nose in that. We'll circle back on the actual question, which is the perception of America by the rest of the world. And I can share at least what I've learned and what I've heard, having been in college with a lot of people who did traveling.
If I may, quick fun fact about the Wild West, is that Lewis and Clark were actually sent west, not only to find the quote-unquote potential river through the West, but actually they were also on commission to try to find evidence that the woolly mammoth still existed.
That is a fun fact.
That's a fun fact. Continue.
We'll circle back.
If I may, they could possibly clone woolly mammoth. So
they've been talking about that for years. That's not happening.
It could.
I've seen it though. I've seen it. You take a frog and you get dino DNA from a mosquito.
Circling back on the circling back.
Jurassic Point.
Okay, let's not get full sci-fi here. Circling back on the circling back of the earlier circling back with no more may you ifs. I don't even know if that was good English. We're looking at the perception of Americans, and a lot of what I've heard, granted most of it's shaped by my girlfriend, now fiance, is that as Americans, you probably don't want to be known as an American when you're outside of the country. Mexico and Canada, okay, you're fine, no big deal. But when you go
American
to
equals money.
When you go to that's a good point. When you go to other countries in Europe, in Asia, the people are very curious. Evidently, they want to know what the opinions of the American people are, because they have news that is unlike ours. Ours is personalized, local, unique, often very slanted one way or the other, depending on what station you watch or which way you lean. But other countries are getting news about America, and they often have questions related to, what do you think about what America's doing in this country? What do you think about what America's doing invading this area, or helping these people, or bombing these people, and all the controversies that are going on overseas? And the answer more often than not is we have no idea it's going on. And the way I describe it is most Americans live in a perpetual state of ignorant bliss. There's all these people who do marches, go to support their cause, and I support that. Make your voice heard, but that's all over the news because that's what sells. People want to watch something if they're concerned that there's rioting, or there's these major police versus mob mentality situations, and ultimately what I would argue, from my limited white male perspective, is regardless of who's in power in the houses, or even with the presidency, America does a really good job, unintentionally or intentionally, depending on how you look at it, of very aggressively doing nothing. Ultimately, the changes that are implemented by either party are so small and so slow that the day-to-day life of an American isn't really affected. Now, there are people who are in
If I may
situations.
though, if I may, you're coming at that from the perspective of well, I mean, privileged white male. You know,
And
it
a
doesn't
young
affect
one.
you day to day, but you also don't rely on a lot of the programs that might be offered. You know, you can kind of just live life through, and I feel like there's a lot of population that we don't think about that it does affect on a day to day, whether it's, you know, whatever the certain bills do. It's just one of those things that, from a lot of our perspective, at least, we don't think about. But there's definitely people that it affects, and they have to think about it.
Yeah, you don't ever think about it until it directly affects you, and then it's a big deal. I know. And another
And
thing is like a lot of
that's
times,
kind of what I'm saying.
yeah, older people like they have time to like sit and dwell on stuff because they're retired and stuff. So that's where a lot of the some of the crazy stuff comes from too.
I agree. What I'm attempting to say is it's very much so a minority of people who are affected, and I don't mean to say that in like a negative connotation of like, oh, it's all the black people, it's all the Mexicans, it's all the Asians. No, it's not in that sense of a minority, but in the sense that there are very few people relatively who are impacted. And yes, there are, I mean, relatively few in a population of that of America still results in hundreds of thousands, if not more than a million, depending on what you're looking at exactly. But I would still argue that for the easy majority of Americans, the and I'm ballparking this as a pulled out of my rear end number, something like 75 to 85% of Americans are unaffected for the most part. You'll get the extremes, people who need help and who are on those programs like you're talking about. And I agree. We need to have those programs. We need to help those people. You'll get the extremes like gun nuts and, the stereotype of someone from the South who's, the government's taking my money, the government's taking my land, and, super against this and that and the other thing. And you'll have those extremes, but it never seems to be a majority. In fact, the biggest the majority of the minority, the biggest party group I can think of that's been picked on is probably the LGBT. What is it?
Don't even
LGBTQ. I
try.
don't know.
Don't even try. You'll
I
screw
don't
it
know
up.
all the letters. I don't know all the letters. I love Pride Radio in Minneapolis. It's like my favorite station, but
Oh,
it's
is
the
that your
LGBT
token? I love the gay
station.
radio, therefore it's okay.
Well, no, but
It's like the
I'm not
classic
saying
excuse. I have a black friend, so it's okay.
it's.
If I may, I mean, the shifting there's a shift that's coming in the demographics of America, and while we might be like, well, we're the majority, over in the next probably 10 years or less, it's going to be a shift from there will be more minorities in the United States than there, more different ethnic groups than just the Caucasian male as a whole. So I mean, it's shifting. It's
Oh, it
America's
is.
diversifying, and
I believe that it is.
I don't think that we could say 80% or 70. I'd want to see numbers on that, because that seems pretty high overall.
Blatantly admitted I don't have numbers for the record.
That's
These
fair,
are
but
these are made up
good
stats.
to toss out numbers. Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, if I may, is it all right if we move on to something else, or?
I think
Yeah, what do
so.
you got?
All right. So just, I think last week, I want to say Supreme Court said that it was okay for sports betting to happen. Now that doesn't mean that it's like
Interest
legal in
crap.
every state, but sports betting could be legal coming to a state near you that's not like Wisconsin or some progressive forward-thinking state. But I was just wondering kind of what your opinions were. Like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I mean, it sort of happens already, but I think it's going to really change how people view, I mean, a really popular entertainment source.
So, if I may, whenever you're not sure why something happened, it's because of the money. So, obviously, there's something in it for somebody in government to allow this. I'm guessing they're gonna maybe tax on the winnings of bettings. That's how they
Exactly.
get away with doing the the state lotteries and that kind of thing, and the Powerballs. is because the state or the country or the nation gets a cut of it. So, I mean, the reason they're allowing this is to have the states and country make money. Now, as far as whether it's a good thing,
the teams also get a cut.
I wouldn't be surprised either, because otherwise the teams wouldn't allow themselves to be used without permission. But
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's a good. I think it's fine. I've never been a big gambler myself. Mostly to side bets to buddies, saying, "Hey, like $5, small stuff." But I know there's some people out there that get super into it, or there's people out there that's their job, is to literally make bets on stuff and put their calls out to the world as far as what they think is going to happen. As far as whether it's good for society, I guess I don't really know. I think it's good that I like how the federal government just made it so any state that wants to do it can do it. But yeah, it's interesting.
I think the thing that worries me is that, when athletes partake in this, and they're the ones that affect the outcome of the game, and I think the integrity of sports could be at risk. I mean, think back to the Black Sox scandal. Pete Rose, who's I still don't think is in the Hall of Fame. There's that rumor theory that Michael Jordan was suspended for his 3-year break because he was gambling on sporting outcomes. So,
according to my wife, who is a native of the Chicago area, that is exactly what happened. And his deal was to go play for the White Sox. That's how he got out of a huge,
honestly,
punishment.
One cheating sports person to another team, that's kind of how it goes. But I feel like I worry that when it comes down to betting, that the money does, as you were saying earlier, Kyle, it drives so much. And I worry that it's going to start driving how the players, beyond just giving it their best effort, how they're going to start playing, whether, we're going to win by this much, so they're going to run up the score, or they're going to, I'm worried about losing, so I'm going to, I bet it that we're going to lose, so I'm going to maybe take a play or two off that I wouldn't normally, or fake an injury or something like that. And I feel like that's kind of sad. I don't know.
I agree. I think that is the biggest risk, is that it somehow affects the play of the game. Yeah, that would be my biggest concern for sure. If the players are all of a sudden doing stuff on the side, and there's going to be some that do it, like it's going to be a thing if the state allows it, and it'll be interesting to see how. I think it's going to be up to the teams to definitely figure out what to do for punishment, and hopefully it's something where if you're, or maybe they make a sports wide rule where if you are caught betting on your own stuff, then you're gone, you're out.
If I may, it's all about the incentives. The incentives for winning have to be greater than the incentives for betting and affecting the outcome, which on a player level you can almost definitely do, and having a potential zero tolerance policy with respect to if a player is ever caught, period, they're done, they're out. I mean that should be an incentive for most. What I would worry about is like the old school mob stuff. Like you have
your family's going to get it.
Yeah. You have some people who are trying to influence players through threats to family, or take out the kicker, who's a low profile individual, but who can still obviously make a huge difference in the game. The quarterback's too obvious. The kicker's kind of like someone who will.
There's only a few players in football that can really affect drastically the game.
Yeah, I would, despite being a lineman, I'll agree with that. But the incentives have to be there, and the protections have to be there. And that, you can't have players being influenced by outside stuff. The incentive for winning, meaning what they're getting paid to play the game and play it well, needs to be more than enough so that they're not tempted by, the going out and betting. Now, given the personalities and lifestyles of some of those individuals, not just looking at TV shows and their implications, but actually the reality. I think the fun fact is like what was the percentage? Like some 90 or 80% of NFL players are broke within 3 years of leaving the league.
Yeah, this is if I may stat right here.
Yeah, which is not the correct number, but it was some crazy amount within 3 years of being out of the league are broke, and those people are making so much money, and they've waited very long and often come from potentially difficult circumstances or situations, and now that they're making all that money, they don't know how to manage it, and they sit there and they assume they're just going to continue to make money. Well, towards the end of their career, if they're not going to get a big deal, well, if they need to have the money to support the cars and the houses and the lifestyle, gambling is a way to turn that around, and that creates a lot of danger, and you need to protect against that somehow. I don't have solutions for how that can be done, but at the end of the day, the incentives need to be there.
If I may, you're an accountant, so no excuse, first off. And it's you should have the solution. You're an accountant. Money is your job. This is.
Yeah. If anybody here,
if anyone
slightly
knows,
more qualified than us,
it would be you, Nick. I mean, honestly, the accountant. Anyway,
to know how much money to pay someone so that they don't gamble. Gambling is addictive.
The athletes to be not broke.
I guess the thing is, if I may, I think the athletes have to be smart enough to get an accountant in the first place.
Thank you.
If I may, though, one athlete I feel like that's been for history severely underrepresented, and I mean in this
underpaid,
sport,
Aaron Rodgers.
In this sport, yeah, of course, but in this sport,
we're from Wisconsin.
Allowed gambling for all of time. I mean, it's when you think betting and gambling, this is it. I mean, horses, like, who's taking care of the horses, and I think
those horses
fitting
have
that
it
this,
good.
Well, still, but they don't get the money, they get, I'll give you a nice
they get
new
treated
blanket.
really nice, and they get to have sex like multiple times a day.
Are you implying that the horses get the money?
I'm just saying someone has to represent these horses.
And the owners. The owners represent the horses.
No, they don't. The owners represent themselves as they do in all sports.
I feel like as far as horses go, I feel like racing horses have it the easiest. They're not pulling anything. They just have one person riding
They get
and a lot
whipped.
of times the
they
person
literally whipped. How would you like running around a track getting whipped by someone riding on your back? Think about that. They get literally whipped.
They're also getting held back a lot of times.
Where's the players' union?
No, they're actually a lot of times getting held back because those horses, they're literally bred to just run. And there's lots of cases where the horses literally run themselves to having a heart attack and just straight up dying just on the track because they ran too hard. A lot of times those riders are even holding them back to make sure that they don't go too fast too soon or, that kind of thing. Plus those jockeys are like the lightest people they can possibly find. Those guys have it rough. They have messed up knees and backs for the rest of their lives. I think the horses have it good. They get treated nice and they have sex a lot.
Well, if they win.
So we know Kyle's priorities for a good life. Awesome.
No, I just think it's fitting that this sports betting thing came up right in the midst of a potential Triple Crown bid. And I know Justify right now. I watched both the races. Not live, but the horse is
a friend of yours?
He's a friend of yours. You know him?
Yeah.
Can you
I know this
us?
guy, this horse out in the pasture next door. No, I've seen him.
We should get him on the podcast.
In the fog. Well, anyway, people are like, this horse could win the Triple Crown. I'm going to tell you, you heard it here first. Probably not if you actually listen to anything with horse racing. But I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he has it.
You do realize that the sport of horse racing exists purely because of betting, correct?
Yeah, I do, but I'm just saying, it changes everything. An owner's like, I'm going to pull back a little bit so I can get that second place bet, which I bet no one does, but maybe. I don't know. I'm not in the inner circle yet.
The money you would make from, as Kyle so eloquently put it, the horse having sex on a regular basis and essentially being bred far outweighs whatever you would win on a single day at the track. What's the one famous horse they made a movie about, Secretariat or whatever?
Yeah,
I think they said that horse was a stud.
It's a guy horse. It's a male horse. I mean,
he's one of the guys. That's the definition of stud, right?
Stud is a piece of wood.
Oh, nailed it.
Or it's great.
But I actually saw it was on YouTube. They had a side by side of Secretariat running whatever, the Kentucky Derby, and then Justify, and Justify kicked Secretariat's butt.
Yeah, it's a different era. They say that
It's
you
it's
can watch
like time. You just
Jim Brown.
you hit the start stop button and you crushed it.
Yeah, but they have so much bloodline and technology's changed so much.
Did you see how much Justify was leading?
It's like barely anything. It was like 2 legs.
I know, and
Two-
Secretariat was like
legs.
crushing everything.
No, I know. That's why I'm thinking like, I watched Justify race. I don't like his start. He doesn't
You
get out
don't
quick
like
enough.
his start.
He rides. No, I mean, if you think about it, in both of his races that he's run so far, he's running around in the second, like, outside part of the lane. He's not running to the fence, which, I mean, you get a bit nicer on the curve. It's a little bit easier on the curve, but you're running so much extra distance. When you're running the Belmont, like the Kentucky and Preakness are shorter races, which is why fast horses do well. But when you get a longer distance, if you're not running the shortest amount of distance, how can you expect to win? Especially because it doesn't look like he's winning by really all that much. I mean, he's running some pretty good times, but there's going to be a horse that's been prepping just for the Belmont, as there is every year, who's going to be better at distance. I mean, I watched him. He looked okay. I just Justify did not blow me away.
I don't know enough about horse racing to bring a
Gotta watch the race.
argument
I
against
was
it.
going to say, if I may, you went to a level of detail that only a zookeeper would.
If
Or
I
a
may,
track
when I
coach,
watched
track
the
coach.
race, I didn't even actually know that. When I watched the Kentucky Derby on YouTube, I didn't know Justify was the favorite. I picked number 7 or 7 or 8 in lanes, and they went in last place. So I'm not
I think
betting on horses
7.
anytime
Justify
soon.
was 7.
Maybe it was 9. I don't know. The horse
Justify
I
was
picked,
number 7.
the one I picked, I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. They lost.
Everyone knows you have to go off a name. Best name wins. That's just how it is.
Say that might be a wrap right there.
I think if we could maybe give a plug of how you can watch this podcast later or how you can connect with us, that might be helpful. So the 2 listeners out there, maybe.
Yeah, the wives and girlfriends and fiancés.
Hopefully,
We'll see. Yeah, well, we have the Zarubust YouTube channel, which has okay content, but fairly minimal. And the podcast will be wherever you can find podcasts shortly. We're tentatively recording each Tuesday, so you'll probably see it around Wednesday or Thursday each week. We'll have a schedule set in stone a little more in the next couple episodes, and hopefully you enjoyed. Do we want to end with a little small? Let's pick out like a video game or cell phone game of the week that we want everybody to try out and see if they enjoy.
All right, now I got an app for you that has taken me by storm. I was visiting with some friends in Seattle. They introduced me to this Clash Royale. I'm sure I'm the only person that's ever heard of this game.
No, I've played it.
It deals with whatever. It deals with microtransactions, whatever. But if you're willing to grind, you can get kind of far. Fun game. It's a good time.
What I like about it is it's short. It has short. We're not sponsored by these guys at all. It's literally like we just started talking about it this week, but short little spurts of gameplay, and it's a lot of strategy. You're always paired up with somebody that's pretty much equal stuff as you. So you don't really ever feel like you maybe couldn't have won. Maybe, and so you make a little deck of like 8 cards or whatever, 8 different people, and then you drop them to try to kill your enemy's base. So I like the strategy. I like how there's definitely a lot more thought behind it than just one of those games where you're just grinding and like Farmvilling, where you're just waiting 2 hours for your next thing to come up.
The Prince. Ugh.
The what?
Speaking of royalty, there's a card in the game called the Prince. Card's stupid. I hate it.
It's really good.
Awesome.
Just wait until you get the swarm of skeletons.
Clearly, both of you are more prepared for this segment idea. If I'm going for a video cell phone game of the week, I play Tetris occasionally when an individual is on their phone, and I recommend that playing Tetris is a good mental break. I once got to level 18. No big deal.
Are we plugging
all I got.
multiple games here, or is this?
So we could use plug one. I think right now we have 2 plugs. but
Your game had microtransactions. Mine's free. So, boom.
there's
Yeah, but
ads
do
or
we
something
pay
for
the
sure.
levels? Don't you have to
Yeah,
pay
there are a
for
couple ads. It's whatever.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll catch you next week.